So confession time, I quite like Tailor Stitch. I'm not sure if that's a controversial opinion or not, but like off the top of my head, I can't think of any other digital brand that does such a good job of making and marketing apparel that's like both heritage and modern in like equal parts. Very few brands pull that off well. I think Tailor Stitch does a pretty good job of it. And the photography on their website is like really attractive. I could just like look at their website all day. In a few other videos, I've worn their Ojai jacket and their Sierra parka, so I am quite familiar with the brand. I know some people kind of turned on Tailor Stitch after they moved a lot of their production to China, which I get. I'm not of the opinion that made in China means bad quality. I think Grant Stone boots are a really good example of that, but that's kind of a talk for another video and another product actually, because these boots are not made in China. They are made in León in Mexico. And if you know anything about León, you know it is the boot making capital of the Western world. Not just North America, but the Western world. A vast number of brands get their boots made there. It's really good craftsmanship. Tailor Stitch, they have a few other boots in their lineup, including a couple of lace-ups. But I'm on a big Chelsea kick lately, and I really like to look at this saddle tan leather we've got here. So today we're taking a look at the Ranch boot in saddle tan, which they claim is Alden level quality at a much lower price. So the Ranch boot is obviously very plainly a casual boot, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. These guys like heritage. This is a very heritage looking boot. One unusual thing that Tailor Stitch has done here to emphasize the outdoorsy nature of the shoe is that they've used a storm welt. If you notice how the lip down here curves onto the upper instead of disappearing beneath it, this means it's more water resistant than even a regular Goodyear welt. Now that welt is attaching a nice grippy Vibram mini lug outsole, which is one of my favorite outsoles because like it's not chunky like a big Commando sole, for example, but it is nice and flat when viewed from the side, and it has more grip than a lot of other soles that are flat when viewed from the side, like Neo Cork, like leather, maybe even Daynite, I think. So this is like nice, it's really got good grip here. So other than that, you got two pull tabs up here, of course. It's fully lined with sheepskin, which is really nice. I really like it when boots are lined with leather like that. And it's also got a nice sort of classic, it's almost a service boot type aesthetic. Now, obviously it's not a service boot because this is a Chelsea, but what I mean by that is that it has a nice like low profile toe here. So it's relatively sleek. Like it's definitely an outdoorsy boot and it's ready for anything you throw at it, but it doesn't suffer from having like a nice big blocky toe like you see on a lot of Chelsea boots, like the Blundstone boot, for example. So this is like sleek and it's still outdoorsy, which is again a nice mixture that a lot of people don't manage to pull off so well. Now getting a bit closer, the stitching is really tight on this boot. It's triple stitched absolutely everywhere, but what's interesting is that unlike say the triple stitching you get on a Red Wing boot, this stitching is like very subtle, it's all very close together, and it still looks, I don't want to say dressy, but like it's not as like screaming in your face outdoorsy as a lot of triple stitched boots out there. So it's triple stitching all over the place. I will note that there are a few loose threads here. It's not a massive deal, but not all of them are nice and flush against the boot. There's a few on the inside of the boots, and most notably on the Goodyear welt, there's a big tuft of a thread down here, see? And like, that's fine, it's not really a big deal, especially if a boot is under $400 or $500 and you can just burn it off with a lighter. I don't really care that much about loose threads, but it is kind of hard to burn it off here without like worrying about getting the leather. I know good leather is meant to be able to survive like a lighter, but you get what I mean. Still, it's a really sexy boot. I'm a real sucker for boots that are like both sleek and outdoorsy. So let's take a close look at this leather. So the leather is this gorgeous mustard color that I would think would be more common in boots, but I don't see it as much as you'd think. It's a really cool color, and as a boring dresser myself, like half the time I'm just wearing dark jeans and a black Henley, it really makes outfits pop while still being a color that's like very rugged and masculine. It's called saddle tan. This is 4 ounces. It's about 1.7-ish millimeters thick. So relative to like, you know, Red Wing Heritage boots, those are normally like 2 to 2.2 millimeters thick. So yeah, the leather's a little bit thinner, but nonetheless, that's still like a good weight. Like that's not a big enough difference to have a significant difference in durability. Right now, you can also get this boot in 6 leathers, including a couple of suedes. Whiskey Eagle is the more classic full grain brown leather if you want to go in that direction. The leather is fully chrome tanned, and the lady I spoke to thinks it comes from Lafargue Tannery, a hugely famous and influential tannery in León that does leather for Wolverine, Saddleback, and a bunch of other companies. Although with my accent, Lafargue sounds kind of questionable. Now as for the outsole here, sorry the leather's kind of dirty by the way, I should have cleaned these before I came in. Anyway, the outsole is a Vibram mini lug. Like I said, it's flat but grippy, it's terrific, and a very famous sole. They use the same ones on Iron Rangers actually. There's a cork midsole and a leather midsole and a leather insole, which is quite fancy. Leather midsole and insole is really good for molding to the shape of your foot over time. Those layers combined with the Vibram mini lug, combined with a shank and a storm welt, yeah man, I'm pretty impressed with how good a job they've done making a boot that in many ways meets the exacting standards of the heritage boot people. As for fit and comfort, they really are quite comfortable boots. They're surprisingly lightweight as well. The leather midsole and leather insole combination, I'm always a very big fan of. A lot of guys, like, they only want like leather all the way through their boots. This just has leather midsole and insole, but nonetheless, yeah, it does do a good job of conforming to the shape of the foot, especially because there's also some cork in there as well. So really heritage construction, as I've already mentioned. Arch support's good, shock absorption's good. I didn't have a rough break-in or anything like that. The only real things I'd want to mention with the comfort as far as downsides go, the first few times you wear them, the leather and the elastic are quite stiff, so they're hard to get on and off. Who really cares, because you're going to be wearing these for a long time anyway, but the first few wears, not so much. The main thing I do really need to emphasize with the comfort here is that it's quite narrow around the toes, you know what I mean? Like, it's nice and sleek, and that's really cool, and has a bunch of upsides, but yeah, it's not a big, wide, blocky last, right? And especially for the first couple weeks, maybe the first like week or two you're gonna be wearing these, it might feel tight around the toes as the leather stretches. Leather will stretch, but yeah, don't expect a big bulbous toe like you get in like a Red Wing Iron Ranger. A lot of heritage boots out there, a lot of companies that call themselves heritage, they're gonna try and go for a big blocky silhouette, like a real tough guy sort of boot, and there's nothing wrong with that. I've got a million of those, but these do not have that kind of toe. They've got a sleeker toe, but the upside is they look less like clown shoes. So as far as the price goes, a pair of these boots is $348. Now, if they were $351, I would be annoyed, but $300 to $350, that's like a normal, fair price. Like for storm welted boots, made in Lyon, leather midsole, leather insole, all this sort of stuff, it's resolable. Yeah, that's a normal price. Like I would expect to pay that, $300 to $350. Now, Taylor Stitch is nonetheless a direct-to-consumer brand, so honestly, like direct-to-consumer brands, the whole point of them is that they can make like, you know, a lot lower prices than a lot of the competitors who have to have brick and mortar stores and so on. So I kind of think $275 to $325 would have been more appropriate for this kind of boot from that kind of company. But it's under $350, so I'm okay with it. Like, I don't love it, but I don't consider this price unfair or anything. All right, pros and cons. Why should you consider getting a pair of these boots? What are the pros? They're great looking boots, man. I really think they're good looking boots. I'm a really big fan of the last here. So like, I like the fact that it's sleek but not too skinny, and it's low profile, but it doesn't look like a sock like a lot of Chelsea boots do. It's city friendly, but it's also non-city friendly. It's a really hard feat to pull off. I think they're very well designed boots. I love the leather as well. It's really good looking. It's good looking. It's a very handsome boot. And that kind of balance between like heritage and modern and outdoorsy but city friendly, again, it's very hard for a lot of brands to pull off. The elastic goring here is nice, it's not too complicated, there's no like leather trim going around it or anything. Chelsea boots, it's really easy for them to look boring, but I think Taylor Stitch has done a really good job of making a pair of boots here that stands out without standing out too much. And the construction is really solid. It's a Goodyear welt, so it's easy to resole infinity times, and it's a storm welt as well, which I'm a really big fan of. Harder to dress up storm welts, but these are not boots you're gonna try and dress up anyway. Storm welts make it extra water resistant, extra I don't have to worry about the weather, which is like what people like in a pair of boots as well. You got cork midsole and a leather midsole and a leather insole, really good for comfort, very, very heritage. It's all triple stitched everywhere as well, but the triple stitching is nice and subtle as well. So it's again, a really good balance there. You get that durable construction without it being like a really ostentatious sort of boot, while not being too city-like either. It's nice and grippy as well, big fan of the Vibram Ming lug. This is a boot that will perform well in water without looking like a pair of gum boots. Comfortable, they're also very comfortable as well. It's nice and lightweight, fully lined with sheepskin. Again, that leather midsole, cork midsole combination makes for nice, comfortable shoes. It doesn't have any of that fancy like EVA foam or anything you see in a lot of boot companies these days, like Thursday Boots again. But you do get like that nice heritage build and heritage comfort that a lot of guys gravitate toward. Plus, there's no break-in. Yeah, good boots, man. Okay, what are some potential downsides? A lot of people got very annoyed with Taylor Stitch when they moved their production overseas. I mentioned that at the beginning of this video, but yeah, the fact that they're not made in the USA after being so loudly made in the USA, that was like a big part of the brand for a while. Some people felt like betrayed by that, you know? Now, I'm definitely not of the opinion that made overseas, like made in China, made in Mexico, is necessarily bad quality. Like that's a provable fact. I'll say it until I die. But I get it if you want to be, if you want your money to be staying in the US as much as possible. Like, it's not totally possible in a globalized world and everything, but yeah, I get it. Made in USA stuff, you're getting more money into the pockets of American workers. I get that, especially as an immigrant in New York, or even as an immigrant in New York. Like, I do understand that mindset, and made in USA, it's totally okay if that's be a priority for you. Other downsides, no wide widths, that's gonna bum some people out, and it's a pretty narrow fit as well, which might bother some other people as well. If your foot is even a little bit on the wide side, you're not gonna be happy about it. There's no fancy EVA foam or anything, like I just mentioned. Oliver Cabell has stuff like that. Oh, they have Poron, I think, but yeah, Poron, EVA foam. the sort of high-tech construction that a lot of companies are bringing to boots. You're not getting that here. This is more heritage construction, which many people consider a really big upside, and you might as well. But I'm just saying, if you're one of the guys who likes boots that have sneaker-like comfort and sneaker-like shock absorption, that's not quite here. This is, again, it's a heritage build and heritage comfort that a lot of people really like. And quality control wise, again, these boots, like, they're not over 500 bucks, right? I've got a pair of Carmina Chelsea boots, and I'll like complain about every little thing on a pair of boots like that because they cost so much money. These are under $350, so like, yeah, I'm gonna hold them to like Red Wing standards, right? So I'm not really that bummed out by a couple of loose threads here and there. The stitching on the Goodyear, well, I do have a friend who, when he saw that tuft, he said, those are hideous, throw them in the trash. Some of my friends are even snobbier than I am, if you can believe it, but I'm comfortable complaining about that little tuft there. Like, I'm not crazy about that. And the leather is also creased like a fair amount, you know what I mean? Like, these have been in shoe trees, and nonetheless, even with the, you know, kind of limited walking I've been doing during quarantine, it's still creased up pretty noticeably. But I mean, they're outdoorsy boots, so it's not really a big deal. These are not the sorts of boots where if it looks even a little bit worn in, they're gonna be ruined. There are some people like, and I get that idea with dress boots, like if they look worn in and creased, then it's kind of a big bummer and you can't wear them with suits anymore. But these, the more beat up, the more creased, the more worn in they look, the better they're gonna look with a pair of jeans. All right, that's it. The Tailor Stitch Ranch boots. I like it, man. You know, they're robust. They're pretty good. They're not super cheap, but they're not super expensive. It's like I think it's a fine price for what you're getting. Like, it's a good, sturdy boot, and it's still pretty sleek. Anyway, pretty good. The full review with some photos and stuff is in the description below. I encourage you to check it out. Click around the site, all that kind of stuff. Rent is very expensive in New York. Please click my ads, and make sure you subscribe as well, because I got a whole lot more boot reviews and denim reviews, sneaker reviews, all other kinds of stuff